I'm standing in the back corridor of Marcello's Fine Italian, right next to the swinging kitchen doors, and my hands are shaking so hard I can barely hold the pen. The waiter, Miguel, according to his name tag, is staring at me like I've lost my mind. Maybe I have. Maybe 47 years of being invisible finally cracked something inside me that was never meant to break. "Ma'am," he says softly, glancing back toward the private dining room where my family is still laughing, still clinking glasses, still celebrating my birthday without me. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I finish writing. Fold the note once, twice. Press it into his palm, along with a check that represents 3 decades of silence. "Please," I whisper. "Read it aloud. After I'm gone. Make sure they hear every word." Miguel looks down at the check. His eyes go wide. "This is—" He stops, swallows. "And ma'am, this is more than my annual salary." "I know. Why?" "Before I continue, you need to understand something. This isn't about money. It's not about revenge, not really. It's about the moment you finally see, truly see, the pattern you've been living inside your whole life. The one that was designed to keep you small, grateful, and invisible. The check isn't the point. The note is. Because you saw me," I tell Miguel. "You were the only person in that room who actually saw me. And what I wrote in that note is going to change everything. For them. For me. For a family fortune they don't even know exists yet." Miguel's hand closes around the paper. His eyes are already wet. "I'll read it," he says. "I promise." I nod. I don't trust myself to speak. Through the small window in the kitchen door, I can see them. My mother, Eleanor, 78 years old and still ruling every room she enters. My older sister, Victoria, with her designer dress and her condescending smile. My younger brother, Daniel, the eternal golden child, currently feeding lobster to his wife, Michelle, while my mother claps like he's performed a miracle. The private dining room is decorated with silver and white balloons. There's a banner on the wall. Someone, probably my niece Emma, the only one who still pretends to care, has written, "Happy 47th Maggie" in glitter letters. My seat is empty. It's been empty for 43 minutes. No one has noticed. No one has called. No one has even looked toward the door. I watch my mother lift her glass. She's making a toast. To me, probably. To her invisible middle daughter. To the woman who paid for this restaurant, this meal, this entire charade of a celebration, and wasn't present to hear a single word of it. That's when I realized this wasn't just dinner. This was the final proof of everything I'd refused to see for 47 years. I turn away from the window. My car keys are in my hand. My grandmother's ring, the one my mother said was lost, the one I found hidden in her jewelry box 3 weeks ago, is on my finger. That ring is how this started. That ring is how I discovered the truth about my grandmother's will, my family's lies, and the $378,000 my mother stole from me before I turned 18. But the note isn't about money. The note is about the kidney I gave to my brother Daniel when he was dying. The kidney he told everyone came from a stranger. The kidney my mother convinced me to keep secret, for Daniel's dignity, when I was 23 years old. The note is about the 42 family events I catered for free over the past 15 years. The $127,000 in loans that were never repaid. The house I co-signed for Victoria that nearly destroyed my credit when she defaulted. The note is about the photographs. 347 family photographs spanning 3 decades. I'm not in a single one. I didn't notice until last month. I thought I just wasn't photogenic. I thought I was always the one holding the camera, so of course I wasn't in the shots. Then I found the originals. I was in every single one, smiling, holding my nieces, standing next to my brother at his wedding, my mother's 75th birthday, Christmas 2019. Someone had taken the time, years of time, to digitally remove me from every family photograph before posting them on social media, framing them, sending them to relatives. Not crop me out, remove me. Like I was never there at all. That's when I stopped feeling hurt. That's when I started collecting evidence. And tonight, on my 47th birthday, I'm going to show them exactly what I found. Not by screaming, not by crying, not by begging them to love me. By reading them a note that contains every receipt, every document, every timestamp of their betrayal. And then I'm going to tell them about grandmother's real will, the one my mother has been hiding for 26 years, the one that leaves everything, the Charlotte house, the beach property, the investment accounts, to me. Not because I was the favorite, because I was the only one who ever told grandmother the truth. I step out into the parking lot. The October air is cold, and my birthday dress, the one I bought specifically for tonight, the navy blue one I thought might finally make my mother say I looked nice, feels like tissue paper against my skin. I get in my car. I drive. But I don't go home. I go to the place where this story really begins. My grandmother's grave, and I sit there in the dark, in the driver's seat, and I tell her everything. Nana, I say to the headstone I can barely see through the windshield. I'm finally going to do what you asked me to do. I'm going to tell the truth. My phone buzzes. One text message. From my niece Emma. Where are you? They just noticed you're gone. I don't respond. 53 minutes. It took them 53 minutes to notice the birthday girl was missing. I put my phone on silent, and I start at the beginning. My name is Margaret Chen, and I built something real. Everyone calls me Maggie, except my mother, who calls me Margaret when she wants something and doesn't call me at all when she doesn't. I've owned Chen's Catering and Bakery in Charlotte for 22 years now. We do weddings, corporate events, galas, anything that requires 300 cupcakes and a woman who doesn't sleep. I started the business with $4,000 I saved from waiting tables during community college. My mother told me it would fail. My sister said catering was service work and asked why I didn't want a real career like her. She's a pharmaceutical sales rep who hasn't hit quota in 6 years, but her husband's family has money, so nobody mentions it. My brother Daniel said nothing. Daniel rarely says anything to me. We were close once when we were kids, before I gave him part of my body to save his life, before our mother decided that was a secret worth keeping. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you who I was before I became this. Before the evidence binder, before the lawyer, before I learned to look at my family the way a detective looks at a crime scene. I was the reliable one, the one who showed up, who remembered birthdays, who drove 2 hours to bring soup when someone had the flu, who answered the phone at 2 a.m. when Victoria's marriage was falling apart, and again at 3 a.m. when Daniel's business partner embezzled from him, and again at 4 a.m. when my mother just needed to hear my voice after a nightmare. I was the invisible glue. I held everything together, and somehow, I was never in the picture. Here's what I didn't know until 3 weeks ago. That wasn't an accident. That was a strategy. The first anomaly happened on September 22nd. I was at my mother's house, dropping off groceries, because I do that every Sunday, have done it for 11 years, and she's never once said thank you without following it up with a criticism of what I bought, and I needed to use the bathroom. The downstairs one was occupied. My mother's caregiver, a woman named Patricia, who I pay for because no one else offered, was cleaning it. "Use the one in my bedroom," my mother said without looking up from her phone. I'd been in my mother's bedroom maybe 5 times in my adult life. She's private, protective, keeps her door closed and her secrets closer. But I needed to go. I walked down the hall, pushed open her door, stopped. On her dresser, in a velvet box I'd never seen, was my grandmother's emerald ring. I recognized it instantly. My grandmother wore it every day of her life. She promised it to me when I was 12 years old, sitting on her lap in this very house, listening to her tell me I was the special one. "When I'm gone," Nana said, "this ring goes to you. I wrote it down. It's in my will." She died when I was 21. My mother told me the ring was lost, that the nursing home must have taken it, that we'd probably never find it. I believed her. I was grieving. I was young. I had no reason to think my own mother would lie to me about my dead grandmother's ring. But there it was, 26 years later, sitting on my mother's dresser like it had always been there. I didn't take it. Not then. I walked past it, used the bathroom, walked out. But something shifted. That's when I noticed the photograph on my mother's nightstand. It was from Thanksgiving 2018. Everyone gathered around the table. My mother at the head, Victoria and her husband on one side, Daniel and Michelle on the other, nieces and nephews scattered throughout. I remember that Thanksgiving. I catered it, made the turkey, the stuffing, 3 pies from scratch, drove everything over in my work van, spent 6 hours in my mother's kitchen making sure everything was perfect. I was in that photograph. I know I was. But in the framed version on my mother's nightstand, the space where I should have been standing, between my mother and Daniel, was just empty wall. I looked closer. Not empty. Edited. Someone had removed me so carefully that if you didn't know to look, you'd never notice the slightly off angle where the wall met the ceiling. The faint blur where my shoulder should have been. I stayed calm. I took a picture of the photograph with my phone. I walked out of my mother's house without saying anything, and that night, I started looking at every family photograph I could find. The next morning, something was different. I couldn't stop seeing it. The evidence was everywhere. I went through Victoria's Instagram, 12 years of posts, hundreds of family photographs, birthday parties, holidays, graduations, vacations. I wasn't in a single one. Not one. I scrolled back further. Found posts where I knew, I remembered, I had been present. My niece Emma's high school graduation. I stood right next to her for the family picture. I was wearing a yellow sundress. Emma had her arm around my waist. In Victoria's Instagram post, Emma is standing alone. Yellow sundress visible on no one. Space beside her cropped so tightly there's barely any background. My chest hurt. Not metaphorically. Actually hurt. I texted Emma, "Do you have the original photos from your graduation?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Mom deleted them off my phone. She said they were taking up storage. I stared at the message for a long time. "Did she delete all of them?" I asked. "Just the ones with you in them." I put my phone down. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was. Written in plain text by the only family member under 40 who still treated me like a human being. My sister had been systematically removing me from family photographs for years. But why? That was the question I couldn't answer. Not yet. 2 days later, I went back to my mother's house. Patricia let me in. My mother was at her weekly bridge club. The house was empty. I told myself I was just confirming what I'd seen. Just checking. Just making sure I wasn't paranoid, wasn't overreacting, wasn't being the dramatic middle child my family always accused me of being. I walked into my mother's bedroom. The ring was still there. I picked it up, examined the inside of the band. To my special one. RC 1976 RC Ruth Chen, my grandmother, my special one. She'd had it engraved for me before I was born. Before she knew which grandchild would earn that title, but I had. Somehow, I had. And my mother had been wearing my ring, hiding my ring, for 26 years. I put the ring back, not because I didn't want it, but because I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with before I made any moves. I started opening drawers. What I found made my stomach drop. In the bottom drawer of my mother's dresser, underneath old sweaters and moth-eaten scarves, there was a manila envelope. I opened it. Inside were documents. Legal documents. Dated September 1999, 4 months after my grandmother's death. The first document was a will. Not the will I'd been shown at the reading, not the simple one that left everything to my mother to distribute as she sees fit. This was an earlier version, dated January 1998. My grandmother's handwriting was on the margins. Notes, revisions, her thoughts. I started reading. I, Ruth Margaret Chen, being of sound mind and body, hereby leave my entire estate to my granddaughter, Margaret Eleanor Chen, to be held in trust until her 25th birthday. I stopped breathing. Everything. My grandmother had left me everything. The Charlotte house, the beach cottage in Wrightsville, the investment accounts, the jewelry, the first edition books, everything. My mother was named as trustee, only trustee, with explicit instructions to transfer all assets to me on my 25th birthday. My 25th birthday was 22 years ago. I never received anything. I never knew anything existed. My hands were shaking. I kept reading. There were more documents. Bank statements from 1999 showing the liquidation of my grandmother's investment accounts. Transfer records. Wire receipts. The money went to an account at First National Charlotte, an account in my mother's name. 38412-67, $378,000. My inheritance, stolen before I turned 25. Spent on what? Victoria's first house? Daniel's failed business ventures? The Mercedes my mother drove for 15 years? I stayed calm. I needed proof. I photographed every document, every page, every transfer receipt, every margin note in my grandmother's handwriting. Then I put everything back exactly as I found it, and I left my mother's house with a new understanding of my family. This wasn't just neglect. This wasn't just favoritism. This was theft, fraud, a coordinated campaign to erase me from my family's story and my grandmother's will. The question was, why? Why me? What did my grandmother see in me that made her leave everything to the middle child? The invisible one? The one nobody seemed to remember? I needed to find out, and I needed to build a case so airtight that no one could gaslight me into doubting what I'd seen. The next week, I started digging. I told myself I'd approach this like a business problem, systematic, organized, evidence-based. I created a spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, event. Column C, proof. Column D, witnesses. Column E, financial impact. I started with the obvious. the money I'd given my family over the years, the loans that were never repaid. Victoria, 2008, $15,000 for a down payment emergency when her husband lost his job. Daniel, 2011, $23,000 to save his business after his partner stole from him. Victoria, 2015, $18,000 for Emma's college fund that I later learned went to a kitchen renovation. Daniel, 2018, $31,000 for medical bills after his insurance lapsed. Victoria, 2020, co-signing her second mortgage when she couldn't qualify a loan. I nearly lost my house when she defaulted. My mother, ongoing, groceries, prescription copays, Patricia's salary, home maintenance, roughly $400 per month for 11 years. I added it up, $127,300 in direct loans, none repaid, $184,800 in ongoing support for my mother, $312,100 total, plus my inheritance, $378,412.67, $695,12.67. That's what my family had taken from me, and I was the one they forgot to invite to dinner. But money wasn't the only thing they stole. I went through my medical records next. In 2000, when I was 23 years old, my brother Daniel's kidneys failed. Hereditary condition, they said, came out of nowhere. He needed a transplant or he'd die. I volunteered. Of course I did. He was my brother, my baby brother, the one I used to carry on my hip when I was 7 and he was 2, the one I helped with homework, taught to ride a bike, protected from bullies. I was a match. Perfect match, actually. The doctors were surprised by how compatible we were. The surgery was hard. Recovery was harder. I missed 3 months of work. Nearly lost my business, which was only 2 years old at the time, because I couldn't bake or lift or do anything while my body healed from having an organ removed. But Daniel lived. That was what mattered. What I didn't know, what I didn't learn until I pulled my medical records last week, was that my mother made decisions about that surgery that I never agreed to. She told the hospital that the donation was to be kept confidential, permanently, that no family member besides her was to be informed of the donor's identity. She told the hospital I requested this. I didn't. I never signed anything requesting anonymity. I would have been proud to tell people I saved my brother's life. But when Daniel woke up, he was told his kidney came from a deceased donor, a stranger, a car accident victim. My mother told him that, in the recovery room, while I was still unconscious from my own surgery down the hall, and she told me Daniel didn't want anyone to know he'd needed a transplant at all, that it would embarrass him, that we should keep the whole thing quiet just between us. I believed her. For 24 years, I believed her. I kept the scar on my side hidden. I never mentioned my missing kidney. I let my brother thank God and modern medicine for his survival, and I said nothing. Because my mother told me that's what he wanted, but it wasn't. The hospital records prove it. Daniel never asked for anonymity. Daniel was never told who his donor was. Daniel has spent 24 years thinking a stranger gave him a kidney, while his sister, who actually saved his life, faded further and further into the background. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money. This was about control. My mother didn't just want to steal my inheritance. She wanted to steal my place in the family, my significance, my story. She wanted to make sure no one ever knew what I'd done, what I'd sacrificed, who I really was. Because if they knew, if Daniel knew he owed me his life, maybe they'd start asking questions about the will, about the money, about why grandmother chose me. My mother couldn't have that. So she erased me, one photograph at a time, one lie at a time, one family dinner at a time, until no one remembered I existed. I needed help. Not emotional help. I had enough rage to fuel a rocket. I needed professional help, legal help, the kind of help that comes with a retainer fee and a very sharp suit. I called my accountant first, Rachel Kim. She'd done my business taxes for 15 years. She was smart, discreet, and she owed me nothing but a good working relationship. I need you to look at some documents, I told her. Estate documents, trust documents, and tell me if what I think happened is legal. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Maggie, are you in trouble? No, I said. But someone in my family might be. I just need to know where I stand. Rachel agreed to meet me. I brought everything, the photographed documents, the medical records, the spreadsheet, the bank transfer receipts. She looked through it all for 45 minutes without speaking. When she finally looked up, her face was pale. Maggie, she said slowly, your grandmother left you an estate worth nearly $500,000 in 1999. Even if your mother had just put it in a basic index fund, it would be worth over $2 million today. I nodded. I'd done the math. And your mother was the trustee, Rachel continued. She had a fiduciary duty to manage those assets in your best interest, to transfer them to you on your 25th birthday. She didn't do that. No. That's embezzlement. That's breach of fiduciary duty. That's fraud. I nodded again. Maggie, you need a lawyer, not an accountant, a lawyer. Specifically, an estate litigation attorney who knows how to handle family fraud cases. Do you know anyone? Rachel wrote a name on a Post-it note and slid it across her desk. Denise Washington, Washington and Associates. She's the best, Rachel said. She handles cases like this all the time. Rich families fighting over inheritance. She's brutal, effective, and she doesn't lose. I took the Post-it. There's one more thing, I said. What? I pulled out the photograph from my mother's nightstand, the Thanksgiving picture, the one with me edited out. I want to know how to prove I was digitally removed from photographs. Is that a thing? Something that can be verified? Rachel stared at the photo. There are forensic image analysts, she said slowly. People who can examine the metadata, the pixel patterns, the compression artifacts. They can tell if an image has been manipulated. How do I find one? Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Maggie, what exactly are you planning? I put the photograph back in my folder. I'm planning to tell the truth, I said. All of it, to everyone. And I want to make sure that when I do, no one can call me crazy. No one can call me dramatic. No one can say I'm making it up. I looked Rachel in the eye. I'm going to prove what they did to me. And then I'm going to take back everything they stole. Denise Washington's office was on the 17th floor of a building downtown. Glass walls, leather chairs, the kind of place that screamed, I charge $500 an hour, and I'm worth every penny. Denise herself was a black woman in her early 60s, silver hair in short, elegant twists, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked like someone's favorite grandmother, until she started talking. Let me make sure I understand, she said, flipping through my evidence binder. Your grandmother died in 1999. Her will, the original will, left everything to you. Yes. Your mother was trustee. She was supposed to transfer the assets to you when you turned 25. She didn't. No. Instead, she liquidated the accounts, kept the money, and showed you a different will at the reading, one that left everything to her. Yes. And you're just finding out about this now, 26 years later. I nodded. Denise closed the binder, took off her glasses, looked at me. Why now? What made you start looking? I told her about the ring, the photographs, the The feeling that had been building for years, that I was being erased from my own family. And the photographs, Denise said. You believe they've been digitally altered to remove you. I don't believe it. I know it. I was in those pictures. I remember being in those pictures. And now I'm not. Denise was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Chen. Miss, I'm divorced. Ms. Chen, I've handled a lot of family fraud cases in my career. A lot of inheritance disputes, sibling rivalries, parental manipulation. She paused. I've never seen anything quite like this. Is that good or bad? It's complicated. Denise leaned forward. The estate fraud is straightforward. If your evidence is authentic, and we'll need to verify that, your mother committed multiple felonies: embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud. Depending on the statute of limitations in North Carolina, she could face criminal charges. And if the statute of limitations has passed, civil remedies still exist. You could sue for the value of the estate, plus interest, plus damages. Given that your grandmother's estate would be worth well over $2 million today, you'd have a substantial claim. I nodded. I'd expected this. But the photographs, Denise continued, that's different. That's not fraud, legally speaking. It's just cruel, manipulative, bizarre, but not illegal. I know. So why does it matter so much to you? I thought about the question, really thought about it. Because the money isn't the point, I finally said. The money is just proof, evidence of what they really think of me. But the photographs, the way they erased me from our history, that's what hurts. That's what I need people to see. People? Or your family? Both. Denise studied me for a long moment. Ms. Chen, I have to ask, what's your end game here? What do you actually want? I didn't hesitate. I want them to know that I know. I want them to know that I have proof. And I want them to live with that knowledge for the rest of their lives. You don't want reconciliation? There's nothing to reconcile. You can't reconcile with people who erased you. You can only show them they failed. Denise nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Then here's what we're going to do. Over the next 2 weeks, Denise and I built a case. First, we authenticated the documents from my mother's dresser. Denise brought in a handwriting analyst to verify my grandmother's signature and margin notes. The analyst confirmed they were genuine, written by the same hand that signed my grandmother's other known documents. Then we traced the money. This was harder. 26 years is a long time. Banks merge, records get archived, account numbers change. But Denise had a forensic accountant on retainer, a quiet man named Michael, who could trace a dollar through 15 shell companies and still tell you what it was spent on. Michael followed the money from my grandmother's accounts to my mother's account in 1999. From there, it split into multiple streams. $45,000 went to pay off Victoria's first car. $78,000 went as a down payment on Daniel's first house. $92,000 went to pay off credit card debt. My mother's, Victoria's, and Daniel's combined. $85,000 went into a brokerage account in my mother's name. The remaining $78,312.67 was spent over the next 5 years on various expenses. Vacations, home improvements, gifts. None of it came to me. Here's the interesting thing, Michael said, pointing to his spreadsheet. Your mother didn't just steal your inheritance. She used it to buy your siblings' loyalty. What do you mean? The car, the house, the credit card payoffs, those weren't gifts from your mother. They were gifts from you. She was taking your money and giving it to your brother and sister, letting them think she was the generous one. I stared at the numbers. All those years of being the forgotten middle child, the invisible one, the one who never got helped while Victoria and Daniel got everything handed to them. They weren't getting my mother's money. They were getting mine. The photographs were next. Denise connected me with a forensic image analyst named Dr. Caroline Frost. She worked primarily on legal cases, insurance fraud, evidence tampering, celebrity deepfakes. But she agreed to look at my family photos as a personal project. "This is actually fascinating," she said when I met her at her office. "I've seen a lot of manipulated images, but I've never seen anything this systematic." She had my photos up on a large monitor, with comparison software running on a second screen. "Look here." She pointed to the Thanksgiving 2018 photograph. "This is the edited version, the one from your mother's nightstand. And this," she pulled up another image, "is the original, which we recovered from your niece's cloud backup." I'd called Emma the night before, explained that I was looking into some family issues, asked if she had any old photos backed up anywhere. Emma, bless her, didn't ask questions. She just sent me login credentials to her iCloud account, where she'd been automatically backing up her phone photos for years, including the ones her mother thought she'd deleted. "See the difference?" Dr. Frost zoomed in. "In the original, you're standing between your mother and your brother. Normal family photo. In the edited version, you've been removed, but look at the shadows." She traced a line on the screen. "Shadows don't lie." The lighting in this photo came from the window on the left. In the original, you cast a shadow that falls partially across your mother's arm. In the edited version, the shadow is gone, but the lighting on your mother's arm doesn't match. It's too bright. Someone removed the shadow, but didn't adjust the exposure correctly. "Can you prove definitively that the image was altered?" "Absolutely. Look at the compression artifacts." She pulled up a technical overlay. Every time a JPEG is saved, it creates a pattern of compression artifacts, tiny distortions in the image. In an unaltered photo, these artifacts are uniform. In an altered photo, the edited areas have different artifacts than the original areas. She highlighted a section of the photograph. "See this? This is where you used to be. The artifacts here are completely different from the rest of the image. This was edited using Adobe Photoshop, saved multiple times, and the metadata shows it was last modified in March 2019, 4 months after the original was taken." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "How many photos can you verify?" "I've analyzed 47 so far. All 47 show evidence of manipulation. All 47 show the same editing pattern. A single person removed from the frame. You, specifically. And you're sure it's intentional? Not just cropping or something?" Dr. Frost gave me a look. "Ms. Chen, cropping is when you cut the edges of a photo to improve the composition. This is surgical removal. Someone took hours, maybe dozens of hours, given the quality of some of these edits, to erase you from your family's photographs. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't lazy cropping. This was a deliberate, sustained effort to make it look like you didn't exist." I nodded. "Can you put that in a report? A professional report I can show to people?" "I can do better than that." Dr. Frost turned to face me. "I can create a side-by-side presentation showing every original photo next to its edited version, with technical overlays demonstrating the manipulation. I can date stamp the edits based on metadata and compression analysis. And I can testify in court, if it comes to that these images were deliberately altered to remove your presence." I smiled for the first time in weeks. That would be perfect. Then I heard the sentence that changed everything. I was at my mother's house. Sunday. Groceries. I kept going because I didn't want to tip anyone off. Didn't want them to know I'd found the documents, the photos, the trail of money. Let them think I was still the reliable, invisible Maggie who showed up with organic produce and left without being thanked. My mother was on the phone when I arrived. She was in the living room, not expecting me. Patricia usually let me in through the kitchen, and she was talking to someone. I stopped in the hallway. I know, Victoria, I know, but she doesn't suspect anything. She never has. Pause. Because she's Maggie. She's too desperate to be loved to question anything. She's been that way since she was a child. Remember how she used to follow you around? Victoria, play with me. Victoria, be my friend. Pathetic. I pressed myself against the wall. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. No, Daniel doesn't know. He can't know. If he finds out about the kidney... Pause. I don't care what the doctors told you. He doesn't need to know who his donor was. It would complicate things. He might feel obligated to her, and we can't have that. Not when we're so close to... Pause. The birthday dinner. Yes, we'll do it then. I've already talked to Marcello. She's paying for the private room, the tasting menu, everything. It'll be perfect. We'll take photos, make a big show of celebrating her, and she'll never know. I heard footsteps, my mother walking toward the hallway. I slipped into the bathroom, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bathtub. My hands were shaking. She'll never know. Never know what? What were they planning for my birthday dinner? I left my mother's house without saying goodbye, texted Patricia that I'd left the groceries in the kitchen, drove home in a daze. That night, I called Denise. Something's happening, I said. At my birthday dinner, they're planning something. What kind of something? I don't know. My mother was on the phone with my sister. She said, she'll never know. She mentioned the dinner, the photos, making a show of celebrating me. Denise was quiet. Maggie, I need you to think carefully. Is there anything else your mother might have hidden? Anything else that could be revealed at this dinner? I thought. The original will. If they know I'm getting suspicious, they might be planning to... I don't know. Pretend they just discovered it? Offer me some token amount to keep me quiet? That's possible. What else? The kidney. Daniel still doesn't know. My mother might be planning to tell him, but in a way that makes me look bad. Makes me look like I kept it secret for my own reasons. Control the narrative before you can. Yes. Denise sighed. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to go to that birthday dinner. You're going to let them make their play, whatever it is. And you're going to record everything. Record it? North Carolina is a one-party consent state. You can legally record any conversation you're part of without telling the other participants. Buy a good voice recorder, something that looks like a pen or a keychain, and keep it running the whole night. And then, depending on what they say, we'll have documentation. We'll have them in their own words, and we'll be able to use it. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. There's something else, I said. What? I don't want to just record them. I don't want to just catch them. I want to beat them. I want to walk into that dinner knowing more than they do. I want to see the look on their faces when they realize their plan failed. Denise laughed softly. Then we need to find out what their plan is before the dinner. How? You said Patricia lets you into the house. Does she have access to your mother's papers? Her calendar? Her email? I thought about Patricia. She'd been my mother's caregiver for 7 years. I paid her salary. She had no loyalty to my mother, just to her paycheck. Maybe, I said, but I don't want to put her job at risk. You wouldn't have to. Patricia isn't going to snoop for you. But you could make sure you're in the house when your mother isn't. You could check her calendar yourself, her desk, her computer. Isn't that illegal? Probably. Risky? Definitely. Necessary? Denise paused. That's your call, Maggie. I can only tell you the law. I can't tell you what your conscience will accept. I didn't answer. Think about it, Denise said, and call me before the dinner. We'll make a plan. I thought about it. For 3 days, I thought about it. On the 4th day, I went back to my mother's house. It was a Tuesday. My mother had a doctor's appointment. I knew because I'd arranged it, because that's what invisible daughters do. And Patricia was there alone. Maggie, Patricia said when she opened the door, your mother isn't here. I know. I just need to pick up something I left here on Sunday, a scarf. I think I left it in her bedroom. Patricia nodded. She didn't question it. Why would she? I'd been coming to this house every week for over a decade. Go ahead, she said. I'll be in the kitchen. I walked to my mother's bedroom, closed the door, went straight to her desk. My mother wasn't a tech-savvy person. She didn't encrypt her files or use two-factor authentication or even log out of her email. Her laptop was sitting open on the desk, sleeping but not locked. I touched the trackpad. The screen woke up. Her Gmail inbox was open. I had maybe 20 minutes before Patricia came to check on me. Maybe less. I started scrolling. Most of it was junk. Newsletters, spam, pharmacy notifications. Then I saw the thread. Subject, read dinner plans. Confidential from Victoria Chen Harrington to Eleanor Chen, Daniel Chen mom. Are we sure about this? It feels cruel. I clicked. Victoria's message continued. I know she's annoying, but telling her at her own birthday dinner? In front of everyone? My mother's reply. It's the only way to make sure she can't argue. If we do it publicly, with witnesses, she won't be able to claim we're lying or hiding anything. She'll have to accept it. Daniel's response. What about the photos? Should we show the photos too? Victoria. What photos? My mother. Daniel found some old pictures of Maggie from when she was young, before she had her issues. I thought we could show everyone how much she's changed, how troubled she's become. It will explain why grandmother's will excluded her. I stopped breathing. Grandmother's will excluded her. They were going to tell me, at my birthday dinner, that I was excluded from grandmother's will, that I got nothing because grandmother didn't want me to have anything. They were going to flip the script. Use the will, the real will, the one that left everything to me, and claim it said the opposite. And they were going to show before photos of me, photos from my youth. Probably doctored photos, knowing Victoria's skills. Photos designed to make me look unstable, troubled, problematic. They were going to gaslight me, in public, on my birthday, with my entire family as witnesses. I kept reading. Daniel. What about the kidney thing? Should we mention that? My mother. Absolutely not. That stays between us. Victoria. What kidney thing? My mother. I'll explain later. It's not relevant to the dinner. Just focus on the will. Daniel. Okay. But Mom, are you sure about this? Maggie has been good to us. She helped me when I needed it. Multiple times. I feel bad lying to her. My mother. She didn't help you out of the goodness of her heart, Daniel. She did it because she's desperate for approval, for love. It's pathetic. We're doing her a favor by putting her in her place. She needs to understand that she will never be equal to you and Victoria. She never was. She never will be. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking again. But this time it wasn't from shock. It was from something else entirely. They thought I was finished. I wasn't. I drove straight to Denise's office. "They're planning to ambush me," I said, showing her the screenshots I'd taken. "At the dinner. They're going to claim grandmother's will excluded me. They're going to show photos, probably altered, to make me look unstable. They're trying to control the narrative before I can." Denise read the emails carefully. "This is good," she said. "Good? They think you don't know. They think you're walking into a trap. That gives us leverage." "How?" Denise smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who just spotted weakness. "Because now we set a trap of our own." The plan came together over the next week. First, I moved up my meeting with the estate attorney Denise had recommended for the formal fraud case. His name was Harold Stein, a semi-retired litigator who specialized in high-net-worth estate disputes. He reviewed my evidence, confirmed that I had a strong civil case against my mother, and agreed to prepare the necessary documents. "Filing for civil fraud and breach of fiduciary duty will freeze any remaining assets from the original estate," Harold explained. "Your mother won't be able to transfer, sell, or dispose of anything until the case is resolved." "How long will that take?" "Could be months. Could be years. Depends on how hard she fights." "She'll fight," I said. "She'll fight until there's nothing left. Then we'll need to be prepared for that." Harold drafted the initial complaint. We didn't file it, not yet, but it was ready, sitting in his office, waiting. Second, I contacted the forensic image analyst, Dr. Frost, and asked her to prepare a formal presentation. Before and after. Original photos next to edited ones. Technical evidence of manipulation. I wanted it visual, clear, undeniable. "I want it on a tablet," I said. "Something I can show people at a dinner table. Something they can't look away from." Dr. Frost delivered it 3 days before my birthday. Third, I called my niece Emma. "Aunt Maggie?" She sounded surprised. We didn't talk on the phone much. "Is everything okay?" "I need to tell you something," I said. "And I need you to promise not to tell your mother. Not until after my birthday dinner." Emma was quiet. "Okay," she said slowly. "I promise." I told her everything. The will, the money, the photographs, the kidney. By the end, Emma was crying. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew something was wrong with how they treated you. I just didn't know. I never imagined. It's not your fault. You were a child. You couldn't have known. But I should have. I should have done something." "You're doing something now," I said. "That's what matters." "What do you need me to do?" I told her. Fourth, I arranged a meeting with someone I'd never expected to contact. My brother Daniel's secretary. Her name was Lauren. She'd worked for Daniel for 8 years. I'd met her at company events, exchanged pleasantries. She seemed competent, professional, discreet. I invited her to lunch. "This is going to sound strange," I said after we'd ordered, "but I need to ask you about Daniel's medical history." Lauren frowned. "Ms. Chen, I'm not asking you to betray his trust. I'm just asking you to confirm something I already know." I leaned forward. "Daniel had a kidney transplant in 2000. Did he ever tell you about his donor?" Lauren hesitated. "He mentioned it once. Said it was a deceased donor. Someone who died in a car accident. That's what he was told. That's not what happened." I pulled out the medical records, the hospital documentation, the proof that I was the donor. Lauren's face went pale as she read. "Oh my God," she whispered. Oh my God. He doesn't know. Our mother told him it was a stranger. She told me Daniel wanted it kept secret. We both believed her. Why would she lie about something like that? Because she didn't want Daniel to feel obligated to me. She didn't want him to know I'd sacrificed something for him. She wanted him to think she was the only one who'd ever helped him. Lauren put down the documents. Ms. Chen, Maggie, what do you want me to do with this? Nothing. Not yet. But I need you to know the truth before the birthday dinner. And I need you to watch Daniel's face when I tell him. You're going to tell him? In front of everyone? No. I'm not going to tell him anything. I'm going to let my mother tell him. Or rather, I'm going to force her to. Lauren stared at me. You have a plan. I have a plan. Is it going to hurt him, Daniel, I mean? He's not a bad person. He's just been lied to. I thought about my brother, the little boy I used to carry, the man who'd borrowed thousands of dollars from me without ever really asking how I was doing. The brother who didn't know his living sister had saved his life. I'm not trying to hurt him, I said. I'm trying to set him free. He deserves to know the truth, even if the truth is painful. Lauren nodded slowly. Okay, she said. I'll be there. I'll watch. Finally, I made one more call. To Marcello's Fine Italian. This is Maggie Chen, I said. I'm hosting a birthday dinner at your restaurant on October 15th. Private dining room. Yes, Ms. Chen. We have everything prepared. The tasting menu, the wine pairings, the decorations. Your mother arranged it all. I know. I'm paying for it, though. The deposit, the final bill, it all comes to my card, correct? That's right. Good. I need to make one small addition to the evening. Something off menu. Of course, Miss Chen. What did you have in mind? I told him. He was quiet for a moment. That's unusual, he said. I know, but it's my birthday, and I want it to be memorable. Very well, I'll make sure everything is in place. I hung up. Then I sat in my empty bakery after closing, and I ran through the plan one more time. The trap was set. All I had to do was walk into it. October 15th arrived gray and cold. I spent the morning at the bakery doing normal things. Mixing batter, decorating cakes, answering emails, acting like it was any other Tuesday. I closed early, told my staff I needed to get ready for my birthday dinner. I went home, showered, put on the navy blue dress I'd bought for the occasion, applied makeup carefully. Not too much, but enough to look put together, confident, like a woman who had nothing to hide. In my purse, my phone, my wallet, my keys. In my phone, a recording app already running, set to capture everything. In my car, a tablet with Dr. Frost's photo presentation, a manila folder with copies of the key documents, a printed version of the emails between my mother, Victoria, and Daniel. I drove to Marcello's. The restaurant was beautiful, old-world Italian elegance, dark wood, white tablecloths, candles flickering in glass holders. The private dining room was in the back, behind thick velvet curtains. I arrived at 7:15, 15 minutes early. The room was empty except for Miguel, the waiter, who was setting out the final place settings. Ms. Chen, he smiled. Happy birthday. Your party will be here soon. Thank you, Miguel. Everything looks perfect. I walked around the table, counted the seats. 8. Me, my mother, Victoria and her husband George, Daniel and his wife Michelle, Emma and my mother's caregiver Patricia, who I'd invited. She deserved a nice dinner after 7 years of underpaid work. I sat down at the head of the table. My seat, my birthday, my night. They arrived at 7:32. Victoria first, in a designer dress that probably cost more than Patricia's monthly salary. George beside her, looking bored. Emma behind them, catching my eye briefly before looking away. Then my mother. Walking slowly, leaning on Daniel's arm. Playing the fragile old woman, even though I'd seen her sprint to catch a falling vase just last week. Michelle came last, carrying a wrapped gift that I knew, without opening it, would be something thoughtless and cheap. A candle from a checkout line. A photo frame from the dollar store. The kind of gift you give someone you don't care about. Maggie. My mother's voice was warm, theatrical. Happy birthday, darling. Don't you look nice? Thank you, Mom. I hugged her, felt her bones through her blouse, smelled her perfume, the expensive kind, probably bought with my grandmother's money. Everyone took their seats. My mother at my right, Victoria at my left, Daniel across from me. The arrangement felt deliberate, surrounding me. Miguel appeared with menus. Actually, my mother said, waving him off, we already know what we'd like. We discussed it earlier. The tasting menu for everyone and a bottle of the 2018 Barolo to start. She didn't look at me. No one looked at me. I'd like to look at the menu, I said quietly. Victoria laughed. Maggie, we've already decided. The tasting menu is perfect. You'll love it. I'd still like to see the menu. A pause. The smallest flicker of annoyance on my mother's face. Fine. She nodded to Miguel. Bring my daughter a menu. Miguel glanced at me. Something in his expression, sympathy, understanding, before he handed me the leather-bound book. I opened it, pretended to read. Around me, the conversation continued like I wasn't there. Victoria, tell Daniel about the house in Wrightsville. Oh, you'll love this. George and I put in an offer. The beachfront property, the one with the private dock. Grandmother's old house? The same one. Mom says she's willing to co-sign, and with the market the way it is. I stopped listening. Grandmother's beach house. The one left to me in the will. The one my mother had been hiding for 26 years. They were buying it. With my mother's help. Using what should have been my inheritance. I flagged down Miguel. I'll have the branzino, I said quietly. And a glass of the vermentino, please. He nodded. No one else noticed. They were too busy discussing Victoria's future beach house. The food came. Wine was poured. Courses were served. I ate in silence. Listened to conversations that didn't include me. Watched my family celebrate my birthday without acknowledging I was there. It was almost impressive. The way they managed to make me invisible even when I was sitting right in front of them. At 8:47, between the fish course and the meat course, my mother stood up. She tapped her glass with a fork. Everyone, I'd like to say a few words. The table went quiet. We're here tonight to celebrate Maggie. 47 years. Where does the time go? She laughed softly. I remember when she was born. Such a quiet baby, never cried, never demanded attention, always just there. I kept my face neutral. Maggie has always been the steady one, the reliable one, the one we could count on. But I think... My mother paused. I think there's something we need to discuss. Something about family, about history, about fairness. Here it comes. Many of you know my mother passed away in 1999. Ruth Chen. A wonderful woman. Strong, opinionated, full of life. Victoria nodded. Daniel looked down at his plate. What some of you may not know is that Mother left a will. A very specific will. And in that will, she made a decision that, well, that some of us have struggled with for years. My mother looked directly at me. Maggie, darling, I've been keeping something from you. For your protection. Because I didn't want to hurt you. I said nothing. Mother's will, her original will, specifically excluded you from the inheritance. All of it. The money, the properties, everything. She left it all to me, to distribute to Victoria and Daniel as I saw fit. You were named once, at the very beginning, and then, my mother sighed dramatically, and then your name was crossed out, with a note that said, no longer worthy. I watched her, watched the lie form on her lips, watched her eyes so convinced of her own performance. I've never shown you the will because I didn't want you to see that. I didn't want you to know that your grandmother, who you loved so much, thought you were unworthy. It seemed cruel, unnecessary. Victoria chimed in. We all agreed, Maggie. We thought it was kinder to let you believe the estate was small, that there wasn't much to divide. We didn't want to break your heart. Daniel was studying his napkin. He wouldn't meet my eyes. But recently, my mother continued, Victoria and I have been discussing, and we feel it's time you knew the truth. You're 47 now. You're a grown woman. You deserve to know why you've always felt apart from this family. It wasn't us. It was grandmother. She saw something in you, something troubled, something wrong, and she made her choice. My mother reached into her purse, pulled out a document. I have the will here, the relevant pages, if you'd like to see them. She held out the papers. I didn't take them. I stayed calm. May I say something? I asked. My mother blinked. Of course, darling, it's your birthday. I reached under my chair, pulled out the tablet I'd hidden there earlier. Before I respond to what you've just said, I'd like to show everyone something. I turned on the tablet, opened Dr. Frost's presentation, set it in the center of the table. These are family photographs, I said, 47 of them, spanning the last 15 years. The screen showed the first image, Thanksgiving 2018, the original. This is the original photograph. I'm in it, right there, between Mom and Daniel. I swiped. The edited version appeared. This is the version that's been shared on social media, printed in frames, shown to family members. Notice anything different? Silence. I'm not in it. I swiped again, more before and after comparisons. Christmas 2019. Emma's graduation. Victoria's wedding anniversary party. I've been systematically erased from every family photograph for the past 15 years, digitally removed by someone with access to the original files and enough skill to make it look natural. I looked at Victoria. Someone like you. Victoria's face went pale. That's ridiculous, she sputtered. I never. Dr. Caroline Frost is a forensic image analyst. She examined these photographs at my request. She can testify, in court if necessary, that each of these images was deliberately altered using Adobe Photoshop. The metadata confirms edits were made from IP addresses registered to your home. I let that sink in. You've been erasing me from our family's history for years, not because of anything I did, but because you wanted to. Victoria looked at my mother. My mother's jaw was tight. This is absurd, my mother said. A few edited photos prove nothing. We're talking about grandmother's will. Yes, I said. Let's talk about grandmother's will. I reached under my chair again, pulled out the manila folder. I have the original will right here, dated January 1998, written and signed by Ruth Margaret Chen. I opened the folder, laid the documents on the table. This will leave everything to me. The Charlotte house, the Wrightsville beach property, all investment accounts, everything. I was to receive it on my 25th birthday, with Mom as trustee. My mother's face didn't change, but her hand, resting on the tablecloth, started to shake. I never received anything, because the will I was shown at the reading, the one you're holding right now, Mom, was a forgery. Or more accurately, a later version that you had drawn up to replace the original. That's a lie, my mother whispered. Is it? Because I also have the bank records, the transfer documents, every wire receipt showing how you liquidated grandmother's accounts in 1999 and distributed the money to yourself, Victoria, and Daniel. 378th, 812.67 in Southern's. Not a single penny came to me. Daniel looked up. His face was confused, hurt. Mom, what is she talking about? She's lying. She's always been unstable. This is exactly what I warned you about. I have the records, Daniel. I pulled them from the folder. Your first house? The $78,000 down payment? That came from grandmother's estate. Grandmother's estate that was supposed to be mine. Daniel grabbed the paper, read it. His face went pale. That can't be right. Mom said that money was from her savings. Mom didn't have savings. Mom had my inheritance, and she gave it to you and Victoria to buy your loyalty. Victoria stood up. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here and... Sit down, Victoria. My voice was quiet, but something in it made her freeze. We're not done. Miguel appeared in the doorway. Is everything all right? Not yet, I said. But it will be. Miguel, could you please bring out the item we discussed earlier? Miguel nodded, disappeared. What item? My mother demanded. What are you doing? Wait. Miguel returned a moment later, carrying a small box wrapped in silver paper. This arrived for you, Miss Chen, he said, placing it on the table in front of me. Per your instructions. I unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a velvet ring box. I opened it. My grandmother's emerald ring. I found this in your bedroom, Mom, 3 weeks ago. The ring grandmother promised me when I was 12. The ring you said was lost. I put it on my finger. You told me the nursing home must have taken it. You lied. My mother's mask was starting to crack. Her composure, always so perfect, was fracturing at the edges. That ring belongs to the family. That ring belongs to me, according to grandmother's will, the real will, along with everything else. I looked around the table. For 47 years, I have been the invisible member of this family, the one who showed up, the one who paid, the one who remembered, the one who gave. I took a breath. I've been erased from photographs, excluded from conversations, lied to about my own inheritance. And I stayed. I kept showing up because I thought, I hoped, that if I was good enough, reliable enough, useful enough, maybe someday you would see me. I looked at my mother, but you never wanted to see me. You wanted to use me, to take from me, to keep me small and grateful while you gave everything I earned to Victoria and Daniel. Maggie, Daniel started. I'm not finished. I pulled out one more document. This is a medical record from Charlotte Memorial Hospital, dated April 2000. It documents a kidney transplant. The recipient was Daniel Chen. The donor was listed as confidential by the patient's mother, who also signed consent forms claiming the donor had requested anonymity. I looked at Daniel. I was your donor, Daniel. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. 24 years ago, when your kidneys failed, I volunteered. I was a perfect match. I went into surgery and gave you part of my body so you could live. Daniel's face was white. That's not, Mom said, a stranger. Mom lied. She told the hospital I wanted to remain anonymous. She told you the kidney came from a deceased donor. She lied to both of us so that you would never feel obligated to me, so that she could keep you loyal to her, and her alone. I looked at my mother. I've been in this family for 47 years. I gave you money, time, labor, love. I gave Daniel my kidney, and you repaid me by erasing me from every photograph, stealing my inheritance, and trying to convince me, tonight, at my own birthday dinner, that my grandmother thought I was worthless. I stood up. I've retained Denise Washington as my attorney. I'm filing civil suit against you tomorrow for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and embezzlement. The documents are ready. The evidence is overwhelming. I walked around the table, stopped in front of my mother. I've also contacted Harold Stein, who specializes in estate recovery. He estimates that grandmother's original estate, properly invested, would be worth over $2 million today. I intend to recover every penny. My mother's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. And one more thing. I pulled out my phone. This conversation has been recorded. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. Everything you said tonight, the lie about the will, the confession that you hid the truth for my protection, is now documented. I looked at Victoria. And the IP address analysis from Dr. Frost's report? It shows exactly which computer was used to edit those photographs. Your home computer, your IP address, logged and time-stamped. Victoria sat down heavily. I didn't know, she whispered. About the money. Mom said it was her savings. I swear I didn't know. You knew about the photographs. You knew about erasing me. That was your choice. I turned to Daniel. You might not have known about the money, or the will, but you knew something was wrong with how this family treated me. You knew, and you said nothing. For decades. Daniel couldn't meet my eyes. I walked back to my seat, picked up my purse. I'm leaving now. I've already paid the bill, the entire bill, for a dinner I was barely part of. Again, as usual. I headed for the door. Maggie, wait, Daniel started. I stopped. Miguel? The waiter appeared. Yes, Miss Chen? I pulled the note from my purse, the one I'd written earlier. Please read this. Aloud. After I'm gone. Make sure everyone hears. I handed him the note. And the check. His eyes went wide. Ms. Chen, this is... I know. It's for you. For being the only person in this restaurant who looked at me tonight. Who asked if I needed anything. Who treated me like a person instead of a wallet. I glanced back at my family. Read the note, Miguel. And then tell them I said goodbye. I walked out. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot when I heard it. Not Miguel's voice. The walls were too thick for that. But I heard my mother scream. A high, thin sound, like something breaking. I waited. A few minutes later, Emma came running out. Aunt Maggie! Aunt Maggie! Wait! She reached my car. Her face was streaked with tears. What did the note say? I asked. Emma took a shaky breath. You listed everything. Every piece of evidence, every lie, the photographs, the will, the kidney, the money, all of it, with dates and amounts and timestamps. And then at the end, you wrote, Emma swallowed. You wrote, I was in every photograph. I was at every dinner. I gave my kidney, my money, my heart, and you erased me anyway. But I kept copies. I kept records. I kept proof. Because even when you made me invisible, I was always paying attention. Love, Maggie. The one you'll never forget. I nodded. Miguel, Emma continued. When he finished reading, he started crying. He said, she paused. He said his own mother did the same thing to him, pretended he didn't exist, made him feel worthless. He said he wished he'd been brave enough to do what you did. I felt something release in my chest. Is that why you left him so much money? Partly. And partly because I wanted someone at that table to know what it felt like to be seen. Emma reached through the open window, grabbed my hand. I see you, Aunt Maggie. I always have. I squeezed her hand. I know, sweetheart. That's why I told you first. What happens now? I started my car. Now I go home, sleep, and tomorrow I meet with my lawyers to begin the lawsuit. And Grandma? Mom? Uncle Daniel? They'll do what they always do. Lie, deflect, play the victim. But this time I have proof. And this time everyone knows the truth. Emma nodded. Can I come see you? Tomorrow? I don't want to be here when they start blaming each other. You can come any time. I pulled out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw my mother standing in the restaurant doorway, Victoria beside her. They were watching me drive away. Neither of them moved. Neither of them called out. Even now, even after everything, they still couldn't see me. But that was okay. I could finally see myself. 3 months later, I sat in Denise Washington's conference room and signed the settlement papers. My mother had fought. Of course she had. Hired her own lawyers, filed counterclaims, tried to argue that the original will was a forgery and that I had fabricated the evidence. But the evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Frost testified about the photograph manipulation. Michael, the forensic accountant, traced every dollar from grandmother's estate. The hospital records proved I was Daniel's donor. The metadata from Victoria's computer confirmed she was the one editing the photos, and the recording from the birthday dinner caught my mother admitting, in her own words, that she'd hidden the truth for my protection. She couldn't explain why protecting me required lying about the will and stealing my inheritance. Her lawyers advised her to settle. She did. The settlement was comprehensive. I received $2.3 million, the estimated current value of grandmother's estate, plus interest, plus damages for the years of fraud. I also received the Wrightsville beach house, which Victoria had been trying to buy, and formal documentation that I was Daniel's kidney donor to be included in all future medical records. In exchange, I agreed not to pursue criminal charges. That part was harder. Denise had advised me that criminal prosecution was possible but complicated. The statute of limitations on some of the fraud had expired. Others were still viable, but would require years of litigation. The civil settlement was faster, cleaner, and guaranteed compensation. I took it. Not because I forgave my mother, but because I was tired. 47 years of being invisible had worn me down in ways I was only beginning to understand. I didn't want to spend the next decade in courtrooms. I wanted to live. So I signed the papers, and I walked away. The family, predictably, fell apart. Not immediately. At first, they tried to present a united front. Victoria insisted she'd known nothing about the inheritance fraud, only the photographs, which she claimed were a joke that got out of hand. Daniel demanded DNA tests to prove I was really his donor, then went silent when the tests confirmed what I'd already shown him. My mother maintained, to anyone who would listen, that I had manipulated the evidence and that she was the real victim. But cracks appeared. Victoria's husband, George, who had married into a family he thought was wealthy, was shocked to learn that most of their lifestyle had been funded by stolen money. He filed for divorce 3 weeks after the settlement was signed. Daniel stopped speaking to my mother entirely. He told me, in a brief, awkward phone call, that he couldn't forgive her for lying about the kidney, for making him believe a stranger had saved his life when his own sister had been there all along. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "I don't know where to start." "You could start by seeing me," I said. "Really seeing me. For the first time in 30 years. He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm trying. That's all I'm asking." We've had lunch twice since then. Awkward, stilted conversations where we both try to remember who we were before our mother reshaped our relationship. I don't know if we'll ever be close, but we're talking. That's more than I had before. Victoria hasn't spoken to me at all. I'm not sure she ever will. Emma, though, Emma calls every week. She's moved out of her mother's house, gotten an apartment in the city, started therapy to work through what she now understands was a childhood spent being taught to look through me. "I'm so sorry," she said on our last call, "for all the times I ignored you, for all the times I went along with it." "You were a child," I told her. "Children believe what they're taught. It's not your fault. But I'm not a child anymore, and I can choose differently now." She can. She does. And that, in the end, is what matters most. I'm sitting in my bakery as I write this. It's early, 5 a.m., and the ovens are warming up. In 2 hours, my staff will arrive, and we'll begin the day's production. 3 wedding cakes, a corporate order for 400 mini cupcakes, a retirement party that needs a sheet cake with Happy Trails Linda in buttercream. Normal things. Everyday things. The work I've been doing for 22 years. But something is different. I'm different. For most of my life, I built this business as a way to prove myself, to show my family that I was worth something, that I could create, achieve, succeed, even without their support. I don't need to prove anything anymore. I know what I'm worth. Not because of the settlement, not because of the money, but because I finally did the thing I'd been afraid to do my entire life. I told the truth. I stopped waiting for them to see me. I stopped hoping they would change. I stopped believing that if I was just good enough, patient enough, invisible enough, they would eventually love me. They wouldn't. They couldn't. Some people don't want to see you. They want to use you. They want you small and grateful and available. And no amount of sacrifice, no kidney, no catering, no $127,000 in loans will ever change that. The only thing that changes it is you. You deciding to see yourself. You deciding to tell your story. You deciding that you deserve to be in the picture. A few weeks ago, I hired a photographer, a professional, the best in Charlotte. I had her take photographs of me at every important location in my life. My bakery, my house, my grandmother's grave, the hospital where I donated my kidney, the restaurant where I finally told the truth. In every photograph, I'm in the center of the frame, visible, present, real. I printed them, framed them, hung them on the walls of my home, not to prove anything to anyone else, just to remind myself I was always there. I just needed proof. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you something. Think about your own family, your own relationships. Is there someone who makes you feel invisible? Someone who takes without giving? Someone who benefits from your silence? You don't have to confront them. You don't have to file a lawsuit or give a speech at a birthday dinner or make a waiter cry. But you do have to see it. You have to name it. Because the first step to escaping a trap is recognizing you're in one. And if you are, If you've been erased from photographs, excluded from conversations, used for your money or your time or your love without ever being seen in return, I want you to know something. You're not invisible. You never were. They just wanted you to think so. And if you ever find the courage to step out of the shadows, to tell your story, to demand your place in the picture, I'll be here, watching, listening, believing you, because I know what it's like to be unseen. And I know what it takes to be visible again. Last week, I visited my grandmother's grave. I sat on the cold ground, my back against her headstone, and I talked to her for an hour. I told her about the ring, the will, the settlement, everything. I told her I finally understood why she chose me, not because I was the smartest, or the most accomplished, or the most lovable, because I was the one who told her the truth. When I was 12 years old, and my grandmother asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I didn't say a doctor or a lawyer or a princess. I said, I want to be someone who matters. And my grandmother looked at me, really looked at me, and she said, You already matter, Maggie. The world just hasn't noticed yet. She left me everything because she believed I would eventually notice it too. It took 47 years. But I finally did. I stood up from the grave, wiped the grass from my clothes, looked down at her name carved in stone. Ruth Margaret Chen, 1923-1999, beloved mother, grandmother, truth teller. I touched my grandmother's ring. Thank you, Nana, I whispered, for seeing me when no one else did. A breeze stirred the leaves above me. Maybe it was just wind. Maybe it was something more. I walked back to my car, drove home, and for the first time in 47 years, I didn't feel invisible. My name is Margaret Chen. I own a bakery. I have a niece who calls me every week. I have a brother who's learning to see me. I have 2.3 million that I earned twice. Once when my grandmother chose me, and once when I chose myself. I have proof that I existed, that I mattered, that I was there. And no one can ever edit me out again. If you've been through something like this, if you've been erased, dismissed, used, or forgotten, I want to hear your story. Leave a comment below. Share your experience. Tell me about the moment you finally decided to step into the light. Because you're not alone. You never were. And neither am I. Not anymore. Happy birthday to me. The Ripples. 6 months after the settlement, I received a letter. It was forwarded through my attorney. Denise had insisted that all family communication go through her office now, to prevent emotional manipulation attempts. And it arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, slipped under the door of my bakery with a stack of invoices and wedding consultations. The handwriting on the envelope was shaky, old, familiar. My mother. I didn't open it immediately. I set it on my desk, beside the photograph of me at my grandmother's grave, and I stared at it for 3 hours while I decorated a 5-tier wedding cake with sugar flowers. At closing time, I sent my staff home, locked the doors, sat down at my desk, opened the envelope. The letter was 2 pages, written on my mother's personal stationery. The same cream-colored paper she'd used my entire life for thank you notes she never actually sent me. Margaret, I have been advised by my attorney not to contact you directly. This letter is therefore being sent against legal counsel and represents my own choice, made freely and without coercion. You have destroyed this family. Whatever you believe about your grandmother's will, whatever evidence you think you've gathered, you have taken something sacred, the bonds of family, and shattered them beyond repair. Victoria won't speak to me. Daniel has moved out of state without leaving a forwarding address. Patricia quit last week, and I am now alone in a house full of memories and regrets. I want you to understand something clearly. Your grandmother did not love you best. She did not choose you for your character or your virtue. She chose you because you told her what she wanted to hear. You were a sycophant, a manipulator. Even at 12 years old, you knew how to work an old woman's emotions to your advantage. The will was a mistake, a senile woman's error. I corrected it because I have always known, that you were not capable of handling that kind of inheritance. You would have squandered it, failed, proven your grandmother wrong. Instead, I used the money to help your brother and sister, to give them opportunities, to build something lasting. What have you done with your settlement? Bought photographs of yourself? Hired lawyers? Turned your niece against her mother? You claim I erased you from photographs. Perhaps I did. Perhaps Victoria did. But can you blame us? Every picture with you in it was a reminder of what you represent. Neediness, desperation, the constant demand to be seen. You exhausted us, all of us, for decades. If you had simply accepted your place, the quiet, supportive background role that suited you, none of this would have happened. We could have been a family. Instead, you chose to make yourself the center of attention, to drag our private matters into public view, to humiliate us all. I do not forgive you. I do not miss you. I am writing this letter so that you understand, clearly and completely, that whatever peace you think you've found, whatever proof you think you've gathered, it will never be enough. You will always be the daughter I didn't want, the child I tolerated, the burden I carried. And when I die, which at 79 years old will not be long now, you will not inherit a single additional penny. Everything I have left will go to charity. Not to you. Not to Victoria or Daniel, who have both disappointed me in their own ways. To strangers, to people I will never meet, because they will be more deserving than any of my children. Enjoy your victory, Margaret. May it keep you warm on the cold nights when you realize that proof is not the same as love, and being seen is not the same as being wanted. Your mother, Eleanor. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and filed it in the drawer where I kept important documents. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call Denise or Emma or the therapist I'd started seeing twice a month. Instead, I walked to the front of my bakery, looked through the window at the dark street outside, the streetlights casting orange pools on the sidewalk, a couple walking by, holding hands, laughing at something I couldn't hear. And I realized something. My mother had just given me the greatest gift she could possibly give: freedom. For 47 years, I had wondered if I was wrong, if I was overreacting, if maybe, just maybe, my family's treatment of me was somehow my fault. My neediness, my desperation, my failure to be lovable enough. But here was the truth, in my mother's own handwriting. She had never wanted me. She had never loved me. She had tolerated me, used me, erased me. Not because of anything I did, because of who she was. And now I knew. No more wondering, no more hoping, no more waiting for a love that was never coming. I was free. I went home that night and slept better than I had in months. The next morning I called Daniel. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Maggie? I got a letter from Mom." Silence. "She sent me one too," Daniel finally said. 2 months ago, after I moved. "What did yours say?" "That I was ungrateful, that the kidney she helped me get, which she still won't admit was yours, should have made me loyal to her forever. That by choosing you over her, I've proven I'm as weak as she always suspected. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, Daniel. Don't be. It helped, actually. Seeing it written down like that. All the poison she kept inside, finally on paper. He paused. I showed it to my therapist. She said it was textbook narcissistic injury response. Mom felt exposed, so she lashed out at everyone who witnessed her exposure. You're seeing a therapist? Started last month, Michelle insisted. She said I had 40 years of family dysfunction to unpack, and she wasn't qualified to help me do it alone. I laughed softly. Smart woman. She is. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Maggie, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about it for months, and I don't know how to say it. So I'm just going to say it. I waited. I'm sorry, for all of it. Not just the kidney, though that's a debt I'll never be able to repay, but for everything else. For never standing up for you. For letting Mom and Victoria treat you like you didn't matter. For borrowing money I never paid back. Eating food you made without thanking you. Showing up to family events where you did all the work and never once asking if you needed help. His voice cracked. You were always there, Maggie. Always. And I took you for granted. I let Mom convince me that you didn't mind. That you liked being helpful. That your needs weren't as important as mine. But that wasn't true. It was never true. And I'm sorry. I didn't say anything for a long moment. Thank you, I finally said. That means more than you know. I want to do better. I want to be your brother again. The real thing, not the distant stranger we've been for decades. I don't know how to do that yet, but I want to try. I'd like that. Good. Daniel let out a breath. Good. We talked for another hour, about his new job in Denver, about Michelle's pottery classes, about the apartment they'd rented with a view of the mountains, and about me, my bakery, my plans, my life. He asked questions. He listened to the answers. He saw me. A year after the settlement, I expanded the bakery. I bought the storefront next door, knocked out the wall, and doubled my kitchen space. Hired 4 new employees. Started doing wedding cakes for venues as far away as Raleigh and Asheville. Chen's Catering became Chen's Catering and Celebration. We did birthday parties, anniversary dinners, corporate events, anything that required beautiful food and a team that actually cared about making people feel special. I wasn't the best baker in Charlotte. Probably not even in the top 10, if I'm being honest. But I understood something that better bakers sometimes missed. Everyone wants to feel seen. Every wedding cake, every birthday party, every retirement celebration. It's not really about the food. It's about acknowledgement. About someone saying, you matter. This moment matters. Let me make it beautiful for you. I built my business on that understanding, and it thrived. Emma came to work for me after college. She'd studied business administration, but her heart wasn't in corporate work. She wanted something meaningful, she said, something where she could see the impact of her effort. I put her in charge of client relations. She had a gift for listening, for understanding what people really wanted beneath what they asked for. Nervous brides who said they wanted something simple, but actually craved validation. Executives who requested professional cakes, but really wanted to impress their childhood friends at the reunion. Emma heard what they couldn't say out loud, just like I used to hear what my family wouldn't tell me. We were good at translating silence. 2 years after the birthday dinner, my mother died. Victoria called to tell me. It was the first time we'd spoken since the settlement. She went in her sleep, Victoria said. Her voice was flat, mechanical. The hospice nurse found her this morning. I'm sorry. Are you? I thought about it. Really thought. I'm sorry she suffered, I said. I'm sorry she died alone. I'm sorry we never had the relationship I wanted. But I'm not sorry for telling the truth. And I'm not sorry for protecting myself. Victoria was silent. The funeral is Saturday, she finally said. You're welcome to come. Or not. I don't care either way. I'll be there. I went. Not because I owed my mother anything. Not because I wanted closure or forgiveness, or any of the things people usually want from funerals. I went because I was done being erased. The church was half full. Old neighbors, distant relatives, bridge club members. People who remembered Eleanor Chen as a charming, sophisticated woman who raised 3 children and kept a beautiful home. None of them knew the truth. I sat in the back row, Emma beside me holding my hand. Victoria gave the eulogy. She spoke about sacrifice, dedication, family values. She talked about our mother's strength, her wisdom, her unwavering love for her children. She didn't mention my name, not once. Even at the funeral, I was invisible. But this time I didn't mind. Because I knew something Victoria didn't. Everyone in that church would forget Eleanor Chen. In 5 years, her name would be a vague memory. In 10, she'd be nothing but a headstone in a cemetery no one visited. But my grandmother, Ruth Chen, the one who saw me, her legacy would live on. In the bakery, in the photographs, in the settlement that funded Emma's education and Daniel's therapy and my own freedom. In the truth. After the service, I walked to my grandmother's grave. It was only a few rows away from where they were burying my mother. I could hear the minister's words drifting over the headstones, muffled by distance and wind. I sat down, placed my hand on the cold stone. She's gone, Nana, I said. Finally. The wind stirred the leaves. I wish I could tell you I forgave her. I wish I could say I found peace, or closure, or whatever it is you're supposed to find when someone who hurt you dies. I traced the letters of my grandmother's name. But I don't think forgiveness works that way. Not for this. What she did, what she stole, what she erased, what she made me believe about myself, that doesn't get undone because she stopped breathing. I took a breath. What I have instead is this. I survived her. I outlasted her. I told the truth when she counted on my silence, and I rebuilt my life when she counted on my failure. I stood up, brushed the grass from my knees. That's my victory, Nana. Not the money, not the settlement. Just this. She tried to make me invisible, and I'm still here. Visible. Real. Seen. I touched the emerald ring on my finger. Thank you for seeing me first. That was 3 years ago. Today I'm 50 years old. My birthday dinner is at Marcello's. Same restaurant, same private dining room. But the guest list is different. Emma, Daniel, and Michelle. Their son, Marcus, who's 2 years old now and calls me Auntie Cake, because I always bring him cupcakes. My friend Rachel, the accountant who first helped me understand what I'd lost. Dr. Frost, who analyzed the photographs. Denise Washington, who fought for my rights. Miguel, the waiter, who now works as our event coordinator at Chen's Catering. His mother came to our grand opening last year. She cried when she saw his name on the staff directory. You gave him a chance, she told me, when everyone else ignored him. I know what that feels like, I said. Being ignored. He talks about you all the time, says you're the reason he believes people can change. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just hugged her, Tonight's dinner will be different from the birthday dinner 4 years ago. There will be photographs, lots of them. And I will be in every single one. There will be a toast. Emma will give it. She wrote it herself, refused to show me in advance. "It's a surprise," she said. "You'll like it. Trust me." I trust her. There will be a cake. Not one I made. I don't bake my own birthday cakes, but one my staff made for me. A 5-tier monstrosity covered in sugar flowers and edible gold leaf, designed to look exactly like the cakes I create for other people's celebrations. For once, the celebration is mine. And when the night is over, when the candles are blown out, the speech is given, the photographs taken, I will go home. Not to an empty house, to a home filled with pictures of me, receipts of my accomplishments, evidence of my existence, proof that I was here. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this: proof matters. Not because evidence can substitute for love, it can't. But because when people try to erase you, when they tell you you're imagining things, overreacting, making it up, proof is your anchor to reality. Proof is what keeps you sane when everyone around you is insisting you're crazy. Document everything, photograph everything, save every receipt, every text, every email that captures the truth of how you're treated. Not because you're planning a lawsuit, because you deserve to know that your memories are real. Because you deserve to look at the evidence on a bad day and remind yourself, I'm not crazy. This happened. It was wrong. And I survived it. One more thing. When I left Marcello's that night 4 years ago, I thought I was walking away from my family forever. I wasn't. I was walking toward a new family, a chosen one, built not on blood, but on trust, on honesty, on the simple act of seeing each other clearly and showing up anyway. Emma is my family now. Daniel is trying to be. The staff at my bakery, who bring me coffee on hard mornings and cover for me when I need to breathe. Rachel and Denise and Dr. Frost, who believed me when no one else did. Miguel, who read my note to a room full of people who never wanted to hear it. These people see me. And being seen, truly seen, is worth more than any inheritance. I'm sitting in the private dining room at Marcello's now. The table is set. The candles are lit. The guests will arrive in 20 minutes. I'm wearing a red dress this year, not navy blue. Red, the color of visibility, of presence, of refusing to fade into the background. Miguel pops his head in. "Everything okay, boss?" "Perfect," I say. "Absolutely perfect." He grins. "Happy birthday, Maggie. You deserve it." I look around the room. The decorations my staff put up, the flowers Emma chose, the photo booth Daniel rented because he wanted to make sure we got real pictures, not posed ones. I'm going to be in all of them. "I do," I say softly. "I really do." If this story meant something to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about the moment you decided to stop being invisible. And remember, you are not what they say about you. You are not who they want you to be. You are not the space they edited you out of. You are here. You matter. And no one can erase that but you. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay visible. Maggie author's note. The final proof. Years after everything was settled, I received a package. No return address. Postmarked from a small town in the mountains I'd never heard of. Heavy, rectangular, wrapped in brown paper. I opened it carefully. Inside was a photograph. An old one. Black and white. Edges yellowed with age. Two women standing in front of a small bakery. One older, maybe 50, wearing an apron covered in flour. One younger, maybe 20, holding a tray of pastries with a proud smile. The older woman was my grandmother Ruth. The younger woman was someone I didn't recognize. On the back, in my grandmother's handwriting, me and my mother. Chen's Bakery, first location, 1952. She taught me everything I know about baking and everything I know about survival. I named my granddaughter after her, Margaret Eleanor Chen. May she carry our legacy forward. I stared at the photograph for a long time. My grandmother's mother had been a baker. My grandmother had wanted me to know, had wanted me to understand that the bakery I built, the one I thought was my own creation, was actually a continuation. A thread running back through generations of women who knew how to make something beautiful from simple ingredients. I didn't know who sent the package, a distant relative, a family friend who'd been cleaning out old storage, someone who knew the truth about my grandmother's wishes. It didn't matter. What mattered was this: I wasn't just in the picture. I was the picture. The continuation of a story that started long before I was born and would continue long after I was gone. Chen's Catering, Chen's Bakery. A legacy passed down from mother to daughter to granddaughter, across decades, across borders, across all the people who tried to erase us along the way. We survived. We thrived. We are still here. I framed the photograph, hung it beside the one of me at my grandmother's grave. Two Margarets, 90 years apart, doing what we were always meant to do, making something beautiful, refusing to be invisible, living proof that erasure doesn't work. This is for everyone who was ever edited out of their own story, for everyone who paid for their own birthday dinner and ate alone, for everyone who gave a kidney and kept it secret, for everyone who showed up, paid the bill, did the work, and went home wondering if anyone noticed. I noticed. You matter, and this story is your proof.